We have a part of the book Seduction. The part 1 is the seductive character. We all have the power of attraction, the ability to draw people in and hold them in a trial. Far from all of us, though, are aware of this inner potential, and we imagine the attractiveness instead as a near mystical trait that select a few are born with and the rest will never command. Yet all we need to do realize our potential is understand what is in a person's character that naturally excites people and develop these latent qualities within us. Successful seduction rarely begins with an obvious maneuver or a strategic device that is certain to arouse suspicion. Successful seductions begin with your character, your ability to radiate some quality that attracts people and steers their emotion in a way that is beyond their control. Hypnotized by your seductive character, your victims will not notice your subsequent manipulation, and it will be child's play to mislead and seduce them. There are 9 seducer types in the world. Each has a particular character trait that comes from deep within and create a seductive pull. Sirens have abundance of sexual energy and know how to use it. Rakes insatiably adore the opposite sex and their desire is infectious. Ideal lovers have an aesthetic sensibility that they apply to romance that is like plague with their image, creating a striking androgynous allure. Naturals are spontaneous and open. Coquettes are self-sufficient with a fascinating cool at their core. Charmers want to know how to place. They are social creatures. Charismatics have unusual confidence in themselves. Stars are eternal and envelop themselves in mystery. The chapters in this section will take you inside of each of the 9 types. At least one of the chapters should strike a chord. You will recognize part of yourself. That chapter will be the key to developing your own powers of attraction. Let us say you have a coquettish tendency. The coquette chapter will show you how to build upon your own self-sufficiency, alternating heat and coolness to ensnare your victims, and show how to take your natural qualities further, becoming a grand coquette. The type that fight over. There is no point in being timid with a seductive quality. We are charmed by unabashed rake and excuse his success, but half-hearted rake gets no respect. Once you have cultivated your dominant character trait, adding some art to what nature has given you, you can then develop a second third trait, adding depth and mystery to your persona. Finally, the section's 10th chapter on the anti-seducer will make you aware of the positive potential within you, the power of repulsion. At all costs, you must root out any anti-seductive tendencies you might have. Think of the 9 types as shadow silhouettes. Only by stepping into one of them, of letting it grow inside, you can begin to develop the seductive character that will bring your limitless power. A man is often secretly oppressed by the role he has to play, by always having to be responsible, in control, and rational. The siren is the ultimate male fantasy figure because she offers a total release from the limitation of his life and her presence, which is always heightened by sexually charged. The male feels transported to a world of pure pleasure. She is dangerous and pursuing her energetically. The man can lose control over himself, something he yearns to do. The siren is a mirage. She lures men by cultivating a particular appearance and manner. In a world where women are too timid to project such an image, learn to take control of the male libido by embodying his fantasy. In the year 48 BC, Ptolemy XIV of Egypt managed to depose and exile his sisters and wife, Queen Cleopatra. He secured the country's borders against her and began to rule his own. Later that year, Julius Caesar came to Alexandria to ensure that despite the local power struggles, Egypt would remain loyal to Rome. One night, Caesar was meeting with his generals in the Egyptian palace, discussing strategy, when a ward entered to report that Greek merchant was at the door bearing a large and valuable gift for the Roman leader. Caesar, in the mood for a little fun, gave the merchant permission to enter. The man came in carrying on his shoulder a large rolled-up carpet. He undid the rope around the bundle, and with a snap of his wrist unfurled it, revealing the young Cleopatra who had been hidden inside and who rose up half-clothed before Caesar and his guests, like a Venus emerging from the waves. Everyone was dazzled at the sight of the beautiful young queen, only 21 at the time, appearing before them suddenly as if in a dream. They were astounded at her daring and strategically smuggle into the harbor at night with only one man to protect her, risking everything on a bold move. No one was more enchanted than Caesar. According to the Roman writer Diocletius, Cleopatra, was the prime of life. She had a delightful voice which could not fail to cast a spell over all who heard it. Such was the charm of her person and her speech that they drew the coldest and most determined misogynist into her toils. Caesar was spellbound as soon as he set eyes on her, and she opened her mouth to speak. That same evening, Cleopatra became Caesar's lover. Caesar had had numerous mistresses before to divert him from the rigors of his campaigns, but he had always disposed them quickly to return to what they thrilled him: political intrigue, the challenges of warfare, the Roman theatre. Caesar had seen women try anything to keep him under their spell, yet nothing prepared him for the Cleopatra. One night she would tell him how together they could revive the glory of Alexander the Great and rule the world like gods. The next she would entertain him dressed as the goddess Isis, surrounded by opulence and of her court. Cleopatra initiated Caesar and the most decadent revelries, presenting herself as the incarnation of the Egyptian exotic. His life with her was a constant game, as a challenge, as a warfare. For the moment he felt secure with her, she would suddenly turn cold or angry, and he would have find to a way to regain her favor. The weeks went by. Caesar got rid of Cleopatra's rivals and found excuses to stay in Egypt. At one point she led him on a lavish historical expedition down the Nile, in a boat of unimaginable splendor, towering 54 feet out of the water, including several terraced levels and pillared temple to the god Dionysus. Caesar became one of the few Romans to gaze on the pyramids, and while he stayed long in Egypt, away from his throne in Rome, all kinds of turmoil erupted throughout the Roman Empire. When Caesar was murdered in 44 BC, he was succeeded by a triumvirate of rulers, including Mark Antony, a brave soldier who loved pleasure and spectacle, and fancied himself a kind of Roman Dionysius. A few years later, while Antony was in Syria, Cleopatra invited him to come meet her in the Egyptian town of Tarsus. There, once she had made him wait for her, her appearance was startling in its way, and her first before Caesar, a magnificent gold barge with purple sails, appeared in the river Cydnus The oarsmen rode to the accompaniment of ethereal music. All around the boat were beautiful young girls dressed as nymphs and mythological figures. Cleopatra sat on the deck, surrounded and fanned by cupids, and posed as the goddess Aphrodite, whose name the crowd chanted enthusiastically. Like Cleopatra, victims like Cleopatra's victims, Antony felt mixed emotions. The exotic pleasures she offered were hard to resist, but he also wanted to tame her. To defeat this proud and illustrious woman will prove his greatness, and so he stayed. Like Caesar, fell slowly under her spell. She indulged him, and she indulged him in all of his weaknesses: gambling, raucous parties, elaborate rituals, lavish spectacles to get him back to Rome. Octavius, another member of the Roman triumvirate, offered him a wife, Octavius' own sister Octavia, one of the most beautiful women in Rome, known for her virtue and goodness. She could surely keep Antony away from the Egyptian whore. The ploy worked for a while, but Antony was unable to forget Cleopatra, and after 3 years he went back to her. This time it was for good. He had in essence become Cleopatra's slaves, granting her immense powers, adopting the Egyptian dress in costumes, and renouncing the ways of Rome. Only one image of Cleopatra survives, a barely visible profile on a coin, but we have numerous written descriptions. She had a long thin face and somewhat pointed nose. Her dominant features were her wonderful large eyes. Her seductive power, however, did not lie on her looks. Indeed, many among the women of Alexandria were considered more beautiful than she. She did have above all of the women was the ability to distract men. In reality, Cleopatra was physically unexceptional and had no political power. Yet both Caesar and Antony, brave and clever men, saw no one of this. What they saw was a woman who constantly transformed herself before their eyes, a woman a spectacle. Her dress and makeup changed from day to day, but always gave her heightened goddess-like appearance. Her voice, which all writers talk of, was lilting and intoxicating. Her words could be banal enough, but were spoken so sweetly that listeners would find themselves remembering not what she said, but how she said it. Cleopatra provided constant variety, tribute, mock battles, expeditions, costumes, orgies. Everything had a touch of drama and was accomplished with great energy. By the time your head lay on the pillow beside her, your mind was spinning with images and dreams. And just when you thought you had this fluid larger mind beside her, your mind was spinning with images and dreams. And just when you thought you had this fluid larger than life woman, she would turn distant or angry, making it clear that everything was on her terms. You never possessed Cleopatra, you worshipped her. And this way, a woman who had been exiled and destined for an early death managed to turn it all around and rule Egypt for close to 20 years. From Cleopatra, we learn that it is not a beauty that makes us silent, but rather a theatrical trick that allows a woman to embody a man's fantasies. A man grows bored with a woman no matter how beautiful. He yearns for different pleasures and for adventure. All a woman needs to turn this around is to create the illusion that she offers such variety of adventure. A man easily deceived by appearance, he has a weakness for the visual. Create a physical presence of siren, heightened sexual allures mixed with all regal and theatrical manner, and he is trapped. He cannot grow bored with you, yet he cannot discard you. Keep up the distraction and never let him see who you really are. He will follow you until he drowns. Norma Jean Mortensen, the future Marilyn Monroe, spent part of her childhood in Los Angeles orphanage. Her days were filled with chores and no play. At school, she kept to herself and smiled rarely and dreamed a lot. One day, when she was 13, as she was dressing for school, she noticed that the white blouse the orphanage provided for her was torn, as she had to borrow a sweater from a younger girl in the house. The sweater was several sizes too small. That day, suddenly, boys seemed to gather around her. Wherever she went, she was extremely well developed for her age, she wrote in her diary. They stared at my sweater as it were gold mine. The revelation was simple but startling. Previously ignored and even ridiculed by the other students, Norma Jean now sensed a way to gain attention, maybe even power, for she was wildly ambitious. She started to smile more, wear makeup, dress differently, and soon she noticed something equally startling. Without her having to say or do anything, boys fell passionately in love with her. My admirers all said my admirers all said the same thing in different ways, she wrote. It was my fault. They wanted to kiss me and hug me. Some said it was the some said it was the way I looked at them with eyes full of passion. Others said it was my voice that lured them on. Still others said I gave off vibration that floored them. A few years later, Marilyn was trying to make it in the film business. Producers would tell her the same thing. She was attractive enough in person, but her face wasn't pretty enough for the movies. She was getting work as an extra, and when she was on screen, even if only for a few minutes, the men in the audience would go wild and the theaters would erupt in cackles. But nobody saw any star quality in this. One day in 1949, only 23 at the time, and her career at a standstill, Monroe met someone at a dinner who told her that the producers casting a new Groucho Marx movie, Love Happy, was looking for an actress for the part of blonde bombshell who could walk by Roach in a way that would, in his words, arouse my elder libido and cause smoke to issue from my ears. Talking her way into an audition, she improvised this walk. It's my West Thedabara and Boopip all rolled into one, said Groucho after watching her saunter by. We shoot the scene tomorrow morning. We shoot the scene tomorrow morning, and summarily created her infamous walk, a walk that was hardly natural, but offered a strange mix of innocence and sex. That over the next few years, taught Marley taught herself through trial and error how to heighten the effect she had on men. Her voice had always been attractive, and it was the voice of a little girl, but on a film it had limitations until someone finally taught her that lowered it, giving in the deep breathy tones that became her seductive trademark, a mix of the little girl and the vixen. Before appearing on a set, her even at a party, Marley would spend hours before the mirror. Most people assumed that this was vanity. She was in love with her image. The truth was the image took hours to create. Marilyn spent years studying and practicing the art of makeup. The voice, the walk, the face, and look were all construction an act. At the height of her fame, she would get thrilled by going into bars in New York City without her makeup or glamorous clothes and passing unnoticed. Success finally came, but with came something deeply annoying to her. The studios would only cast her as the blonde bombshell. She wanted serious roles, but no one took her seriously for those parts. No matter how hard she downplayed the siren qualities she had built up. One day, while she was rehearsing as is seen from Cherry Orchard, her acting instructor Michael Chevkov asked her, "Were you thinking of sex while we played the scene?" When she said, "No," he continued, "all through our playing of the scene I kept receiving sex vibration from you, as if you were a woman in the grip of passion. I understand your problem within your studio now, Marilyn. You are a woman who gives off vibrations. No matter what you're doing or thinking, the whole world has already responded to those vibrations. They come off the movie screens when you are on them." Marilyn Monroe loved the effect her body could have on the male libido. She tuned, she tuned her physical presence like an instrument, making herself reek of sex and gaining glamorous, larger-than-life appearance. Other women knew just as many tricks for heightening their sexual appeal, but what separated Marilyn from them was an unconscious element. Her background had deprived her of something critical: affection. Her deepest need was to feel loved and desired, which made her seem constantly vulnerable, like a little girl craving protection. She emanated this need for love before the camera. It was effortless, coming from somewhere real in deep inside. A look gesture that she did not intend to arouse desire would do so doubly powerful just because it was unintended. Its innocence was precisely that excited a man. The sex siren has more urgent and immediate effect than a spectacular siren does, the incarnation of sex desire. She does not bother to appeal to extraneous senses or to create theatrical build-up. Her time never seems to be taken up by work or chores. She gives the impression that she lives for pleasure, and is always available. What separates the siren from the courtesan or whore is her touch of innocence and vulnerability. The mix of perversely satisfying it gives the male critical illusion that he is a protector, the father figure, although it's actually the sex siren who controls the dynamic. A woman doesn't have to be born with the attributes of Marilyn Monroe to fill the role of the sex siren. Most of the physical elements are construction. The key is the air of schoolgirl innocence. While one part of you seems to scream sex, the other part is coy and naive, and if you were incapable of understanding the effect you are having. Your walk, your voice, your manner are delightfully ambiguous. You are both experienced desiring woman and the innocent Amin. Your next encounter will be with the sirens who bewitch every man that approaches them, for with the music of their songs the siren cast their spell upon him as they sit there in a meadow piled high with the mouldering skeleton of men whose withered skin still hangs upon their bones. Circe the Odysseus, Book 11th.